All right, joining me once again here on the Matthew Filipowicz Show is my good friend Katie Halper. Katie is a stand-up comedian, a satirist, blogger, and filmmaker. She is the co-founder of Laughing Liberally. Her work has appeared in the New York Times, The Nation, Huffington Post, Comedy Central, MSNBC, Raw Story, Feministing, and more, all of which you can find at katiehalper.com. You can also follow her on Twitter at KTHalps. Katie, thank you so much for being on the show again.
Hi, thanks for having me. Great to be back. Salon,
so, Katie,
too. It's going to be obnoxious to mention Salon.
What's that? Salon as well? Is that what you said?
Credits. That's the one that people really seem to.
That's your big one. That's even over like.
Yeah, I love them all, like my children, right? No favorites.
Yeah.
But I think that Salon is one of those places that like non-liberals even have heard of.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so any non-liberals who are listening to the show, she's also on Salon. You know, not like that New York Times or anything like that.
Yeah,
so who's heard of that?
Yeah.
Who's heard of Comedy Central? That stuff is just yeah.
Right.
Well, so Katie, most people are aware that there was a recent election in Israel. And in the campaign, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said some really, really horrific stuff in the campaign. Why don't you give us your take on what went down?
Yeah, so Bibi Netanyahu, which I love the way that we call him Bibi. We have like a cute little nickname for him.
Right.
Like, it would be funny if we called like Arafat Ari, Yassi or something. Yas, Y Dog. He did kind of look like a Muppet, as my friend, who's not particularly anti-Arafat, once pointed out. I think she's kind of right. Also, another thing interesting to know about Arafat, he owned shares in a bowling alley in New York City.
Really?
Which I find
I wonder what that's about. What's
you got to diversify your portfolio, apparently. Who doesn't like bowling?
He likes strikes, huh?
Oh, nice. I like it. Yeah. Well, maybe that could be the key to peace in the Middle East. I feel like Semites, Jews and Arabs and maybe are probably both bad at bowling. So maybe if they joined on a team and played against the Christians, who I think are probably good at bowling. I sound so Hitlerian and eugenicist. I'm sure that there are people who, you know what, I'm projecting. I'm the worst bowler. I've been bowling a few times, and one of the most traumatic times was when I was a camp counselor, and my 14-year-old campers were like so disturbed and distraught, and necessity is the mother of invention, and so they actually were like, Katie, why don't you just lie on your stomach? Try it that way. So I
did you?
I did, and I think I may have done better that way than being vertical.
Well, I mean, like, really, if they spent more time actually, going, that should be the campaign: bowling strikes, not military strikes.
Yeah, not airstrikes, not military strikes. That is really good. Hit me with the bowling ball, not with the. Yeah, that's good.
Not a cruise missile.
What'd you say?
Not a cruise missile.
Exactly. So he said this really disgusting thing about. It was basically like racist fear mongering, talking about how how labor and the left wing was getting out, busing Arabs in droves. That Arabs were coming out in droves to vote. He said the right wing government is in danger. Arab voters are coming out in droves to the polls. Left wing organizations are busing them out. Get out to vote, bring your friends and family, vote Likud in order to close the gap between us and labor. With your help and with the help of God, we will build a nationalist government that will protect the state of Israel. So I was kind of shocked by this because I guess I shouldn't have been, but we've heard this stuff from Lieberman, Avigdor Lieberman, the former foreign minister, who the week before, I believe it was the week before, I wrote about this too. It's hard to keep up with the timeline. It was either the week before or the same week. It was Sunday, so I kind of in between on that one. Yeah, it was last Sunday. Excuse me. Had said that disloyal Israeli Arabs had to have their heads cut off. He said, those who are against us, there's nothing to be done. We need to pick up an axe and cut off his head, which was, of course, great timing for a campaign that was based in large part on the threat of ISIS, on why the right-wing government was the only one able to defeat ISIS. So then he makes
also pointing out the fact that that right-wingers here in America always flip out about ISIS. And again, ISIS is horrible. Beheading people is horrible.
Right.
But here you have
beheading people, just so you know.
Yeah, exactly. We're very anti-beheading, but the fact that here you have this person, saying that we should behead people. Also, one of our big allies, Saudi Arabia, beheads people all the time.
Right, exactly, yeah. Right. Yeah, and it's under the and they're supposedly legitimate government as opposed to ISIS, who this is not to downplay or glamorize or glorify ISIS. They're disgusting, terrible people.
Obviously,
they would kill you. They would kill me. This is not. I'm not going to. Sometimes the left does this annoying thing where they fetishize and clump together all people who are anti-U.S. as if they're all these Che Guevara-inspired anti-imperialist, progressive, enlightened people fighting for women's lib and the end of the gender binary and racism, which is not the case. Newsflash for ISIS. But anyway, it's just funny because Israel constantly presents itself as this beacon of democracy, and then you have this guy who's this elected official who's saying these things about cutting people's heads off. In fact, though, Israeli diplomats or former diplomats came out and made a statement because they were so embarrassed by this. But anyway, Netanyahu was a little bit more tactful usually than Lieberman, right? He said things off the record. There is video of him saying that the Americans are easy to move, basically to manipulate, right? So it's not like he doesn't have kind of Machiavellian thoughts, but because he's a Machiavellian, I guess, he usually hides them more effectively. But this time he just kind of came out and tried to scare people into voting for his party to kind of counteract the votes of Arabs. And what I thought of immediately when I saw that was the very race-baiting things that Republicans have done in the past, but certainly wouldn't go on national television to do. Sorry, not national television, excuse me. Just to clarify, this was a Facebook video that he posted.
But it's still official. In the public eye. Yeah, exactly. It's not something that it is hidden.
Right, it wasn't off the record. It wasn't a mistake, right? So I would say that today in 2015, Republicans would not create a Facebook video saying you got to vote because the blacks are being bussed out in droves, right? So I did this little video where I translated it into American racist rhetoric and to show that how racist this actually is, because I think sometimes it's hard for people to see when it's not in their country. And also there's this phenomenon of PEP, Progressive Except on Palestine, that I've written about, where people are, they went to free Nelson Mandela rallies and they are, socialists practically, and they go to rallies against the U.S. invading Iraq, but when it comes to Israeli policies, it's Israel is always right.